I'm watching the Gran Turismo movie that's based on a true story. Now, I have not been excited for this. I haven't even watched the trailer for this. The only excitement I honestly had for this film is the fact that it was directed by Neil Blomkamp, which for many people actually might be a giant worry for them, specifically because he has had a lot of misfires over the last 3 films he's made. And for me, though, I'll always give him a chance because District 9 I found to be a masterpiece. It's one of my favorite films of all time, and it's great to see him come back to this movie because this movie is a winner. Gran Turismo is a movie that actually really surprised me on how good it actually is. It's not perfect. It is severely underdeveloped in certain categories, but in a tried and true underdog story, this is the type of film that you would expect to see. This is the type of film that you would want to see from an underdog story, and it is one that wins you over by its charm, its performances, and specifically its stunts. Now, I'll say full disclosure, I do not know all of the actual true story isms or even how much they did within the actual car and what was visual effects, but a lot of it looked really damn good, and I'm excited to talk about this movie. But I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down there, as well as leave your thoughts. Have you ever played a Gran Turismo game? What's your favorite racing game? And in fact, also just as a heads up, that I do want to let you guys know that this video was recorded during the 2023 WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. Without the labor of the writers and actors currently on strike, this movie being covered here wouldn't exist. You can check out the link down below for more information on that. And without further ado, what I like to start with is my pros, because Gran Turismo, I went into this not really knowing anything about this film, and the performances are really what took me by surprise. Now, flat out, David Harbour, let's get him out of the way. I knew he was going to be great in there. This guy is always firing on every single cylinder. And for me, he was arguably the best part about this entire film on a performance structure. I really think what David Harbour does in this film is excellent. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think my favorite performance of his primarily is in Stranger Things. What he's done as Hopper is just phenomenal, but in this film you really come to understand him, and specifically a lot of the stuff that they do midway through the film all the way up to the ending really has you on board, and you really come to understand and care about his character, who I think, and I'll say this, I'm going to mention this in my issues, like I said, that there's a lot of underdeveloped things in here. His character is one of those ones that could be very paper thin, but the way that he gives gravitas to a lot of his moments, to his performance, to some of his backstory that you can only imagine because of just how obvious it can kind of seem, it really comes to play here, and I really love what they were able to do with David Harbour's character. Orlando Bloom as well, really good in here, but the main star of here, and I'm gonna mispronounce his name, so I highly apologize. I always like to do this, but it's Archie Madekwe. He plays the main character in here, and this is based on a true person. Who, fun fact, I didn't know this, you find this out, the stunt double for him was actually the actual driver in real life. So I thought that was kind of cool. But Archie in here gives an absolute standout performance in here. For all this film's faults with its characters, Archie is not the issue. His performance is such a stellar win that it's the same thing. All the pros that I just said about David Harbour, you can give right back to Archie. Archie is literally great in this film, and I was pleasantly surprised by his performance, by his charm, by how charismatic he is. You can just instantly come to follow this character and want to cheer him on, to the point that this is an underdog story that does make you want to fist pump to the sky when he has his successes, and actually get quite emotional when he has his downer moments. And I think while you have all those great performances, the big thing to say is that Neil Blomkamp does a phenomenal job directing this movie. I'll be doing a Neil Blomkamp ranking the week of release for this film, so do look forward to that. But this is such a win for him in his career. And I think when he came on to sign on to here, I was like, really? He's going to be doing a Gran Turismo movie? But it works. It feels the way that he actually directs all the racing scenes, which I thought were phenomenally directed. And I'm usually very picky from them. you see this camera, the usage of a drone and the usage of the shots, as well as the way that they kind of in place the video game thoughts to it all. This is about a struggling working class gamer who pretty much is one of the best Gran Turismo players in the world and gets the chance to actually become an actual race car driver. And that is an unbelievable story, but it's something that actually came true because Gran Turismo is said to be one of the biggest simulated games and one of the most officiated and realistic approach to it at all. So the fact that you can take that and bring that in here, and while this is not a video game adaptation, it's more of just a video game movie or a movie based on a video game in some ways, it is kind of touching to see how Neil Blomkamp was able to take part of the game and in-place it into the racing sequences. Whether it's his position in the race, which makes it very easy. Sometimes it's very hard to tell where someone is in the race, specifically when a lot of the cars are moving really fast, to even some of the lines that they kind of draw out to how the game works. I really like how the stylization and the visual nature of it all was very appealing to the eye. Honestly, really intense. Again, Neil Blomkamp's direction was firing on all cylinders there, and I have not felt that direction since I saw District 9 all those years ago. So bravo. I go back and think about the racing, I definitely have to talk about it. Again, the visual effects are great, but I also can't really defer on what was real and what wasn't. And that's just stellar in its own. If they actually did drive all this stuff, it is fantastic. If a lot of it was visual effects, then the visual effects were fantastic. Overall, this is a really pleasantly good-looking movie that, again, surprised me. Cinematography, stellar. Technically, it's great. I really love the soundtrack that they chose for this film. But what made this film maybe not the perfect video game film that it could have been? There's a few things. And like I mentioned, I overall am surprisingly really good on this film. I'm surprisingly really high on this film. My issue with some of the film is, first off, the first 30 minutes is a bit rough. And it's not terrible, but it's just so average. It's so painfully average, in fact, that I'm just watching this, I'm like, this is cliche. I know what's going to happen. And it also kind of just felt like a commercial for Gran Turismo in the first 30 minutes, which really bugged me. And thankfully, that's not the whole film. I was really getting worried that they were doing such a good job that it made me want to go buy a game that I have not played since like the PlayStation 2 era. So that's saying something. But I was sitting there, I was like, okay, I don't know really how to feel about this. But luckily, the film finally finds its stride after that first 30-40 minutes. Which, again, the first 30-40 minutes is enjoyable, but it really picks up steam in that back half, and that's when I started to really like this. I was about to come out of this film going, it's okay, it's fine, but it really won me over in that back half, and from the judging by my audience, it really won them over too, because I saw some people fist pumping in the air, cheering, and that's what you want from a tried and true underdog story. Alongside that, though, one thing that I think is the holdback of this entire film, because that first 30-45 minutes really just hurts from some pacing-wise and some cliches. The back half of the film, I think, could have been executed a little bit stronger with better utilized side characters. This film is really bad when it comes down to characters and relationships. A lot of it is underdeveloped, to the point where it actually bothered me. Now, I understand this is based on a true story, so there's a lot of relationships that they should honestly touch on a little bit more. You only have 2 hours and 15 minutes to touch on that. There's some things that I would have cut out personally, or maybe gone through a little bit faster to get us to the meat and potatoes, so that way we could explore those relationships, but they never really did. One of those is Orlando Bloom's character and his relationship to the rest of the crew. He's just kind of there to kind of get them there, get them the money, get them whatever needs to happen to get them into these races. The only really developed relationship is between David Harbour and Archie, honestly. But whether it comes down to Archie and his family, there's a lot of underdeveloped things there, specifically with the father, that I wish they would have touched on more. Same thing with the brother. And same thing with a girlfriend in here that I just kind of sat there and I was like, why is this all in here if it's so underdeveloped? Where I would have rather you focused in on 2 or 3 relationships and left out some of the others. Now, again, I don't know the full true story. Maybe all these relationships are super important to the character and the real life person, but it really distracted in the film. And I would have actually rather preferred the film to be 15-20 minutes longer if we were going to get more developed things to that. But the film still won me over, and those are just kind of issues that I just had along the way to getting to the finish line. Tell me as a fan of Gran Turismo, a tried and true underdog story that wins your heart with its charm, emotions, performances, and Neil Blomkamp's direction is stellar. The usage of the video game really added to the racing. My biggest two issues for the film, though, is it takes way too long to get into the story, and a lot of the characters are secretly underdeveloped. I wanted a little bit more from certain things in here, but overall, when I look at this film, I thought this was an entertaining ride. I would absolutely buy it on Blu-ray eventually when it's at a cheaper price. If you're wanting to go see it at the theaters, I wouldn't say you have to rush out to it, but if it is something that you're interested in and you like racing movies, I think this would scratch your itch, and overall, I'm going to give Gran Turismo a B. Surprisingly, a good movie. Maybe it could have been better. Maybe it shouldn't have been. Who knows? Neil Blomkamp killed it. Can't wait to see what he does next. Thank you so much again, guys, for watching this. And of course, until next time, stay classy.